Crimson Desert is infamous for allegedly not having a story. However, each step taken in Pywell, and even in the abyss above, reveals new truths and rich lore that are embedded in every fiber of this vast world. From desperate gods to power-hungry goblins, nothing is ever as it seems. Kailok the Hornsplitter was no exception. Although many dismissed him as a, quote, poorly designed boss, the truth behind his motivations, and the end to his tyrannous rule, would make even the most battle-hardened Greymanes shake their heads in disbelief. Pywell is home to many different beings, including humans, trolls, orcs, Fatus, and goblins to name a few. Each race has its own unique customs, traditions, abilities, and skills that make them valuable members of their communities. As humans seem to be the most populous of the races, they are often seen holding positions of power. Trolls on the countryside use their sheer strength and size to carry out physical labor for coin, while their cousins at Skullstone have taken to the pursuit of knowledge. Orcs, as talented engineers, have forged incredibly advanced technologies, and the Fatus have mastered the art of chill. Goblins, on the other hand, are best known as crafty beings who dabble in shady dealings. The most prominent goblin guild in Hernand, the Goldleaf Merchants, manage the trade of packaged goods in bulk by day, but also back alley shops by night. These stalls, hidden in the outskirts of most major towns, specialize in the sale of illegal merchandise and tools often used by thieves and ne'er-do-wells alike. The flavor text for the Goldleaf Guild House located on the Unicorn Cliffs states that the Goldleaves use Hernand as their base. They exert influence over the entirety of Hernand's economy and society. While their trade prices are generous, breaching a contract carries a brutal penalty. As the largest merchant guild in Hernand, their influence reached far beyond its borders and stretched across all of Pywell. The profit gained by any deal far outweighed the moral limitations of what was right or wrong. This trait was seen as the very embodiment of goblin materialism that defined their opportunistic ways down to the core. To put it simply, the goblins were a shrewd people who valued a good deal over all else, even if it meant a little blood had to be shed. Even amongst their own, they resolved inner conflict with acts of violence that swiftly decided fate or reconciled a trade gone bad. Interestingly enough, they realized that even this custom of theirs could be monetized and created the Golden Fist Arena as a result. It seemed coin was always at the forefront of their minds. As Cliff was introduced to Hernand and its denizens, he eventually came across the misdeeds of several bandit factions terrorizing the town. Eventually he met Shakatu, a goblin from the Goldleaf Guild who had taken a stance against the current leader of his people, Kylock. Under his rule, the goblins had inched ever closer to their dreams of grandeur. However, Kylock's brazen tactics brought unwanted scrutiny to his people, and their highly valued discretion had been compromised. Shakatu asked Cliff to intervene, and the rest was history. Kylock was slain, and Shakatu, the even-tempered, took the throne to guide his people in the right direction. At least, that's the story according to Shakatu. You see, he's not the goblin he portrays himself to be. In fact, I believe he may be the worst of the two. If you don't believe me, then listen closely. Since his birth, Kylock was considered an outcast. With pale skin and a sickly upbringing, he was often the victim of bullying. All his life, his own people had regarded him as inferior simply because of his unnatural appearance. It wasn't until the stars above answered his prayers that his life was forever changed. Through a stroke of luck, he had discovered an abyss artifact that granted him immense power. Armed with this divine relic, the once frail and pale Kylock could now split ox horns with just the wind emanating from the strokes of his aptly named Sword of the Lord. Sadly, the farmers and ranchers would be the first to discover the lengths Kylock would go to prove his namesake and adorn his crown and cloak. Countless incidents of goats and other horned animals being maimed plagued Hernand and those who relied on their livestock to survive. Almost immediately after gaining his title, he would hire lowly bandits to search for more skystones, as he called them. This was of course a reference to the artifact he had allegedly stumbled upon. With just one granting him the ability to split horns, what could two or more of these glowing rocks allow him to do? Kylock would forcefully take his position above those who had wronged him, and formed an allegiance of elite soldiers largely consisting of humans. He made this choice consciously, as his looks granted him audience to the other races more easily, not to mention the disdain he had for his own people also likely played a role. Interestingly enough, his signature weapon originally belonged to the Celeste royal family, but was later purchased for an unimaginable amount of gold on the black market. It seemed a fitting weapon for the self-proclaimed king, Kailok the Hornsplitter. But as he rose to power and expanded the Gold Leaf Empire through his brazen methods, Shakatu watched enviously from the shadows. How could this pale abomination take what was rightfully his? His reign would soon meet its end. All he needed was a fall guy. Immediately upon meeting Cliff, Shakatu knew that he could manipulate the Greymane's good nature to carry out his will. Under the guise of altruism, Shakatu played the role of a victim whose chance at leadership was stolen from him by a cruel tyrant. Only under his rule could he restore his people and their ways. After their initial encounter, Shakatu invited Cliff to discuss matters with him in a more discreet location. When Cliff arrived, he was met by unruly thugs who sought to threaten and harm him. Naturally, the altercation ended in seconds with Cliff standing as the sole victor. Little did he know that he had passed Shakatu's test. These thugs were actually Shakatu's private soldiers. Despite his apologies and excuses for the behavior of his men, they had actually just been following his orders. Ever the cunning strategist, Shakatu was well aware that he could not defeat Kylock in mortal combat. Being the opportunist he was, he took notice when a Greymane outsider was meddling in Gold Leaf affairs. He used his private guard to test Cliff's combat prowess and confirm his suspicions. Shakatu had found his fall guy. Listen closely to this interaction between Cliff and Shakatu after their first true meeting.
I hope there are no misunderstandings.
Why were your men seeking me out to begin with?
Does such consideration further offend you? I was hoping to speak to you about our branch master, the Hornsplitter. He manipulates the gold leaves to commit misdeeds to satisfy his own greed. If we don't stop him now, no one will be able to stop him in the future. Therefore, I have a request to make of you, Greymane. Please, put an end to him. I see you need further persuasion. An artifact, perhaps. The Hornsplitter's thirst for its power is the root of all this chaos. He is hunting them, so that none may stand against him. Of course, I won't be leaving you empty-handed. Your efforts here will aid the people of Hernand, and will certainly ingratiate you to the Marquis Circus. A very generous man. If my agents are to be trusted, he'll offer the Greymane's land to rebuild. Then, naturally, you would need a great deal of supplies. What do you think? It seems quite the mutually beneficial arrangement, wouldn't you say?
You're a natural merchant.
Did you notice it? Even Cliff wasn't convinced that Shakatu's words weren't full of deceit. Every sentence he spoke was punctuated with dollar signs and mentions of mutual benefit. Shakatu even dangled the prospect of rebuilding the Greymanes in an attempt to manipulate Cliff even further. But one detail in their conversation sent a shiver down my spine. Shakatu referred to the Skystones as Abyss artifacts. No one else uses this term, as there are only few living beings in Pywell that even know of their existence. Up to this point, the bandits, villagers, and even Kylock called the glowing rocks Skystones. As soon as I realized the truth, my heart sank. Shakatu had planned each and every detail from the beginning, starting with Kylock's alleged discovery of the Abyss artifact. You see, Shakatu had already planted agents in each of the noble houses of Hernand, namely House Circus and House Celeste. It didn't take a mastermind to know that Kylock, a former outcast and weakling, would quickly resort to violence and abuse his newfound abilities to demonstrate his power. Even the sword he would come to wield was all part of the plan. This incredibly valuable family heirloom of House Celeste would somehow find its way into the black market and into Kylock's pale little hands. Naturally, Shakatu made sure of this outcome, as it would arouse the suspicion of the Gold Leaf Guild and provide him with even more reason to step in and set things right. Kylock's search for Skystones caused an influx in criminal activity that was led directly by the Gold Leaf Merchant Guild. As word spread, the guards of Hernand were unable to quell the growing threat that began since he had taken over as branch master. This was the genius of Shakatu's plan. He would pull the strings from the shadows and watch as the people desperately sought a solution. Even the name of the main quest associated with this mirrored this very sentiment: rebellion or revolution, and cheers echoing from the edge. Cliff would play his small part, and without ever lifting a finger, Shakatu would be crowned king. With his agents influencing the nobility to grant the Greymanes their land and their immediate need of goods and services, an endless stream of coins flowed right into his greedy little hands, just as he had planned. It didn't take long for Shakatu to discard his ragged clothes and cloak in exchange for a decadent outfit and absurdly adorned crown. The jewel he fitted it with was nearly as large as his devious green head. Even the journal entry for Shakatu reveals that his cunning mind was unmatched and his delusions no less grand than that of the former Pale King. Consider this a warning. Don't believe a word this deceptive goblin utters. Shakatu's greed knows no bounds. It was only through his lack of scruples was he able to pull off the heist of the ages and even manipulate you, the player, into believing his sob story. Nothing in Pywell is ever as it seems. Do you still think Crimson Desert doesn't have any lore? That's all for this video. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. Click on these videos on screen to continue your journey in Crimson Desert, and I'll be there to guide you when you arrive. Until next time, it's the Inhuman One signing out.